Druidsfire from MMO Central. I am here at Standing Stone Games with our good friend Mr. Rohan Ciccolini, executive producer of Standing Stone Games for both Lord of the Rings Online and Dungeons and Dragons Online. And we're going to discuss a little bit about both games today, including some follow-up to the exciting announcements this past weekend at PAX East at the player meetup that was held at the Adventure Pub up in Arlington, Massachusetts. Rob, it's great to be visiting the office again and to see all the cool stuff that's coming down the pipeline. If you don't mind, we'd like to start with Dungeons and Dragons Online, the elder of the two games.
Sure.
Right now, it's in the midst of the 14th anniversary. I apologize that I always have to kill your character as part of that. In this industry, it is really rare for a game like this to survive this long. What would you consider to be its secret of success?
Well, the fans are very passionate and they're very good about supporting us as a company. So I think that is the biggest reason. The game, both of our games have long-time loyal fans that like to play, and I can't stress the dedicated staff who put like a lot of love into the games. I think both game designs hold up long-term. The sort of separate adventures of DDO is a very different experience than the long-term story-driven content of LotRO. And each basically are created in a way that have a lot of the players respond well to both of them. I think that they can see the love that the devs put into all of the handcrafted adventures and the handcrafted stories and all of the bits and pieces that they add to the games and the little touches that they do. So I think that plays a large part in the long-term success of the games.
Okay, great. Now, LotRO recently had a lengthy downtime on every server in like pairs to do a database update. And I believe DDO was supposed to go through that same process. Has that process already happened without the downtime? Or are we going to expect a similar downtime for that upcoming for DDO?
I believe that DDO will see something similar, but the downtimes will probably be shorter because we have the process in place. And it should go smoother in terms of like how much each server is actually down.
Okay. Now, you've recently launched Update 45, which added the Alchemist class. I was watching a couple devs who were actually playing that class at their stations earlier today. So why was this class added to the game? Because you already have so many different classes for DDO doing so many different features of the so-called Holy Trinity. What was the impetus to add this flask throwing class into the party?
We were definitely looking for something different. We've done a lot with Marshall, especially with universal trees, and we wanted to add a different way of casting, but we didn't want to feel it to feel like Sorcerer Time Point 2. So with Alchemist, not only did they cast very differently, but it gave us an opportunity to basically create spells from scratch, which is totally awesome and really exhausting at the same time. Like the amount of work that went into Alchemist in order to have a whole new spell casting set of first to 9th level spells is the dev team did a great job, because I don't, even going through it, I don't think we all realized just how much work that was, because we haven't done a new spellcasting class in a long time. Even Favorite Soul used a lot of the cleric spells. So, and then we were looking for something that, like with all our classes, not only do we want it to stand on its own, but we want it to have a good mixture of ways that it can interact with other classes for people who like to multi-class. So like Alchemist can interact with a lot of melee and ranged classes and turn combos in that. Like my next character, now that my last one died in permadeath, will probably be an Alchemist Thief Acrobat, because I want to see if I can get the staff fighting Thief Acrobat a second tree that synergizes with them. And I'm eyeing a Biochemist as sort of like 4 levels of Alchemist to give me a second tree.
Okay. Have there been any accessibility concerns with the community due to the fact that it's primarily a color-coded mechanic in the UI? I mean, they're the symbols, but has anybody been raising
all the
any
symbols unique, so that it's very easy. I shouldn't say that. Our intention was that it should be relatively easy to see all of the symbols, because the symbols combine in unique ways. So if you're colorblind, you should be able to play and know what's going on, because all of the icons have separate shapes in them that are color agnostic.
All right. And since you mentioned permadeath, which of course is the hardcore league, I have not yet died, but then to be fair, I'm only level 4. I'm enjoying the warlock build that Tom made. It's been really cool. But one thing I noticed in the difference between season 1 and season 2 is you changed the NPC vendor. Like we went from mortality to Arenticos, and I'm sure I said that wrong because are there any kind of plans to rotate who the vendor is every year? Like I think somebody on the forums shouted out they wanted Scrag to be the vendor.
One of the ideas for the hardcore league is to keep the players on their toes. The vendor change sort of resonates with it's meant to indicate to the players that there are new kinds of champions that are more based on evil demonic types. And so that's sort of a clue as to, oh, this is a different environment. I don't know that I would rotate through all of the vendors. Like, I would not be surprised to see the normal mortality vendor happen for like 2 seasons, and then maybe we'll shake up the champions again with something completely different and have something different. It all depends on where we're going. With Feywild, I wouldn't mind seeing a Fey version, like some unseelie Fey Lord to be that, and all of the champions likewise changed. But I don't know if that is where we will put our creative talents for the next one. We just want each season to be memorable and feel a little different, so players have new challenges.
Okay. Now with update 45 having come out, and we're currently in the middle of hardcore season 2, you guys also added the 64-bit client to DDO. We've test driven it for quite some time on the LotRO side. Aside from the obvious ability of the client to utilize more RAM that your computer would have on, instead of be hard limited to 4 gigabytes, what does that 64-bit client bring to the table to improve the DDO experience?
There are a lot of things that the DDO graphics engine had specialized code for 13-year-old machines that really sacrificed power for memory usage. And by now that players have modern cards, taking that code out lets the players fully utilize their graphics card in a way that they couldn't before. So there's code behind the scenes that can utilize that. In addition, some of the old libraries can be brought up to 64-bit, and not being 64-bit limited us in terms of compilers and libraries and a number of things behind the scenes that the players won't notice, but will allow us to not only have better performance, but hunt down other bugs and things that cause lag. Right now, the 2 things that cause lag don't seem to be server CPU, but rather some sort of hang where the client and the server is waiting for a database update or something that we're tracking down, or something client side where there's a burst of data, probably in the effects system. It happens a lot, for example. The 64-bit client allows us to bring to bear more modern tools too, because trying to develop in 32-bit, the rest of the world has moved on.
Right.
And then we can backport those to 32, for the most part.
Yeah, and lag is still present in the game, as our friend Elderfall from Death Smile found out one day. Level 30, fell to the bottom of Invitation to Dinner on Reaper 1. And,
yeah, lag is a real
sad.
concern with a hardcore server, and one of the things that we found is that there was actual bug that was causing the server side to jam up, and we've since fixed that, but it was causing like just lag spikes. So those should be gone, but there are a number of times where something can just be waiting, and even though the server CPU isn't maxed, because we definitely watch for that, it could be something like the server is waiting for the database, and all of that is new because we're updating the server database code. So,
all right. In your producer's letter, you did mention considering adding a new adventure pack and new legendary versions of classic raids this summer. But you purposely kept details a bit vague. Can you give us a little bit more about what players might be able to expect then?
the summer update will basically start the storyline that will lead to the expansion. That's our goal. So there will be new dungeons that will start telling the tale, and yeah, we would like to do a new raid, but I think we're down to the decision between 3 different ones. So I don't want to spill that right now, because I don't want to get the players' hopes up and have them be like, oh, but you said this, and we go with another one. Some of it is driven by schedule. Sometimes we'll have every intention, but when we go in and look at the code, it could be that the area was built in a strange way, or they used experimental code, and updating it will take a lot longer than we budgeted. So we'll swap over to an alternate plan. So kind of talking about that right now before it's finalized would probably be something dangerous. And since that's not a huge plan, I think just knowing that those are coming is the important thing I wanted to communicate to the players.
Okay, and of course we do have to discuss the new expansion, which you revealed a little bit more information about at the meetup. Yeah, I know. It was really funny watching Red Panda jumping in the background, and it's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. But we're going to go to the Feywild. We're going to add the shifter race. I've already got a character name locked in for that one, because I'm a smart person. I did that with my Alchemist too. It's like as soon as I heard, it's like, okay, I need an Alchemist. Flasks is available on Orion. Well, it isn't anymore. So with one of the big things about the new expansion is you're going to allow players to exceed level 30 for the first time. Now, there has been some confusion about, you had mentioned that they would be able to max out to level 40 at the meetup, and everybody's like, wait, in 5 minutes or something? So now my understanding, you said that it would be maybe a couple of years before they would get to 40. So is there like a plan to do like increments of increasing the level cap, or how do you plan on working on it?
So we'll start with only a few levels, so that the players don't feel as though they have to stretch the content. That won't extend the TR loop. The TR loop for Epic will stay the same, and you'll be able to start gaining levels in the new content, which will be a different story type. So it won't be epic. So it'll be like this heroic, and then there's epic, and then the legendary is a continuation of epic, and then there'll be the new content, which will start a new
cycle.
A new cycle, yeah. That would be right.
Interesting. One of the players at the meetup was asking about merging servers. That's always been a common refrain on both games. And you were talking about something very interesting about the possibility, again, possibility only, that that there was a long-term goal or plan to come up with one or more mega servers, but the current hang-up was you can't transfer guilds in DDO. So how would the main question is, how would player shared banks be involved with that? Because you can't transfer shared banks no matter what. At what LotRO you were able to in the past.
Well, so there's 2 basic challenges for that. One is the one is the guilds, as you were saying, but the other is all your account data. We have to make sure all your account data goes, because right now our transfers are character only. So we have to not only do that, but if you transfer from multiple servers, we want to make sure that your account bank can grow, but you'll only be able to take things out until you've sort of figured out what you're going to do with all of your loot. Is probably what we'll do. I mean, I would hate to have the players have to cut down on what's in their account bank up front in order to do that. That would be less than ideal in terms of that. But yeah, we want to have larger mega servers that have more capacity in the back end. Obviously, there's a central component that manages where the characters go amongst the servers, and we have to make sure that under our new hardware that won't be an issue, but that's not usually the cause of lag, and we're not worried about that. And the hardcore server spikes at the top end pretty high, so we were able to look at how that would affect it. And the lag wasn't because of the master server. So yeah, our goal is to have mega servers. The reason we want to do that is, let's say that we were going to merge the servers. By taking some servers and merging them into others, we create a situation where there's a have and have not. But if we have fresh mega servers, there's not only do we have everybody moving over, and we'll have like a regimented system where that can happen, so people can get the names they want. But it also frees up a lot of the older names. There's some concern that people are like, I'd love to have this name, but so and so had it and hasn't played for a long time, so that will free up the names in terms of that. As long as the players are cool about it and don't try to like jump in and steal names to act as a spoiler, which sometimes happens.
We saw that in LotRO. People did that.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how that turns out. But I think that we would have like a wave, and there's a number of ways to do that. Like, you can only make 3 new characters to start, so you can't just fill the servers with character names.
Similar to something Blizzard did recently when they opened Classic, is they limited people that when they opened the name reservation, they only let people have 3 characters at once, and across all of their servers. And then if you wanted, you had to wait until they opened up general registration after the servers launched. It was really cool. So I had a final question, but you actually already answered it early because I wanted to know what you yourself were enjoying. But let's twist it a little bit. What have you been playing lately in the game in terms of either quest or a build that surprised you with how much fun it was versus, for your specific preferred playstyle?
I like versatile characters, and I'm willing to give up some DPS for that. So one of the characters I liked was, I had a War Priest of Vol that used Vistani, because I like the double daggers down. So that seemed to be well. Most people are going with Favorite Soul for Vistani builds rather than War Priest.
How about Dagger Druid?
Yeah, Dagger Druid
I found that like things.
The Druid forms are really powerful, especially since the revamp. I'd like to try Paladin again because I really like the new two-handed fighting styles.
Yeah, I was actually my Paladin. I have a Paladin in reserve on Hardcore League. Then I went and played one of my other Paladins in the anniversary event, and you killed me. You totally paced me.
Right.
Because I didn't send my hireling to take Torque out for me. It was embarrassing, actually.
We were hoping that it would be cathartic for people to be able to punch the devs in the face.
No.
Sort of in a dungeon.
Yeah, Jerry, yes. You guys know I like Linabelle, and I like Steelstar. Anyway, that was all I had about on the DDO side. Now we got to flip over to the LotRO side, where, of course, as a LotRO lifer. You did announce at Gen Con that there were race changes, and that's been a frequent question coming up on the forums and on the weekly Court of the Rings. Can we not with an ETA as to when, because we all know the answer to that question is soon. TM. The brief history of soon is still somewhere on the LotRO website. I'm not going to tell you where it is. What sort of progress has been made on bringing this to testing and to go live with it? Because I saw that somebody had seen it on Bull Roar very early on and it was quickly removed. So where are we in that process?
Pretty far along. It's been to Palantir a couple times. one of the issues is that when you swap to race, there's so much quest data that has to be hand changed in order for it to make sense. So a lot of our early testers were catching quests that didn't transfer over properly, and that was a bulk of the changes. So right now, we're just waiting on our QA to move it into Bull Roarer, and the QA has been busy with the Sheila breed. And so as soon as that's done, you'll see, I imagine that you'll see the racial stuff transfer over unless we see some back-end problems that we're not expecting. So Palantir has seen it, Palantir has tested it. As you saw, it slipped into Bull Roarer, but they got pulled off because we knew that there were some quest issues, and we didn't want to expose the players a feature that we knew was going to cause problems for their transferred characters. So that's where it is. So you should see it relatively soon.
All right. Speaking of how soon is soon, the other hot topic, of course, is how soon can we expect the server transfers to come back? But that's always been we don't have an answer yet. Can we shed any light on that at this point?
Sure. There are two kinds of server transfers we're talking about. One is turning back on the dark servers. So that's what we call them, and that is the reason that is that honestly they haven't been moved in the back end to the new databases. It's just a lot of work. So as we have been going through that process, once all the dark servers are moved and propagated to the new database, we can turn on the transfer for those, as we always have.
Outgoing ones, right.
Right. For the transfers from our current live servers to our current live servers, that's another question because the players have been using it in unintended ways for a variety of nefarious purposes. So we're going to have to examine those policies and see what's up with that. So I think that those will be turned on after we get the dark server transfers back on. And then we have to see how those will go, and I don't think that unlimited transfers from normal servers to normal servers will be on. I know that people will be disappointed with that, but I just want to set that expectation.
Fair. So something else that's coming back or coming into the game is unintentionally found on Bull Roar, but we ran with it and completely upended the raid commentary on the forums. Everybody wanted to know about the Rohan Housing. And you dropped a bombshell at the player meeting that we were going to be getting stables with that housing, and it's due to go live with Helm's Deep launches on the legendary servers at TBA. Are these just inside those stable spaces that we found, or will the mounts, however the mount system works, where you can display however many mounts or whatever, are there going to be corrals? I mean, outside where you can watch your horses running around.
So it's still early in development, but the way that engineering has created them, that there's a hook point, and what you can do is you can take any of your mounts and create it into a housing item, but it requires a special kind of hook in order to have the mount appear, and then it's left up to the people who are working on housing as to where they put those hooks. So I imagine mostly the hooks will be in stables, but for instance, there's a possibility of having a hitching post, for instance, where a mount can appear in terms of that. And I think that once that technology is done, they'll revisit the housing and see how best to use it. But I imagine for the first iteration that we're all envisioning stables where you can put your most your favorite mounts in terms of that. So when someone is looking,
and so they wouldn't be wandering around because there's such a small space for them to move in.
Right, exactly. Like the idea of having like giant fields where your horses are running back and forth is probably not. Is probably going to be server prohibitive. In terms of
wild stallion mobs wandering around the landscape. So since we're mentioning the legendary servers, originally when they were first advertised, we were told that it would increment based on expansion, explicitly expansion. And of course, there weren't expansions between Helm's Deep and Mordor, but there's a lot of content through that area. So are we going to have a long dry spell and jump straight to Mordor with all of Gondor in the way? Or are you going to revise the terminology on that?
I don't think so. I think that the terminology of expansion was probably too specific. I think that holding back all of that content and putting it all out at once would actually not serve our players well. The players like to follow along, and one of the big advantages of having a legendary server is that everybody can be current and see the game as it was. So adding all that content at once, I think what would happen is the super engaged players would race ahead, and then we have a big long spread again. And I don't think that we'd want to do that. So what I would expect is that you'll see some logical division of that content be released in terms of that. It's kind of interesting to be looking at the data and seeing how the players are progressing, because it's always hard to try to serve both the players at one end in terms of the that they've already done a lot of the end game, and then the players playing at a different pace and making sure that everyone's happy. So sometimes the players will be like, "Oh my God, it's like, when is the next update coming? I can't wait." And other players are like, "No, not yet. It's not time."
We haven't plumbed the depths of Isengard yet.
Right, and we want to make sure that the players have enough time to do that, but that also we don't stick in one place long enough where it doesn't get interesting. And that's been surprisingly challenging, because the players, we have a wide variety of players that we want to make all of them happy.
And that's a very, very hard prospect. Speaking of making players happy, the crafting carryalls are now permanently in the LotRO store.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that. My crafter needs about 20 of them. My crafters, I should say. Can you tell us what sort of plans or timeline might be in the works for adding the task item carryalls, which are only a one-shot offering over Black Friday? Or we noticed there were other carryalls in the database, such as instrument gig bags, and they really need to be called gig bags. Do you have any information you can provide on that?
Moving ahead on that, we're releasing them in small bits to make sure that, well, for the instrument ones, once the raid goes out, we'll have a chance to test them more often. For the other ones, it'll depend on sort of like demand. If it's a niche bag, something that we think that only a few players will use, we'll use it in different ways, dole it out as rewards in terms of that. But the carryalls were not niche at all. Like, they were popular, which is why we moved them to the store, because it was like, oh my God, everybody wants them. So releasing them on a limited time basis made
bigger
no
bags.
sense.
My crafters want bigger bags. The one I got when I purchased the high-end tier of Minas Morgul only took about a half of my cook's materials, because Cook has so many crafting mats. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, cooks do.
Yeah. Okay. A long-standing concern amongst players has been the unfortunately dire state of grinding for scrolls of empowerment and starlit crystals to improve LIs. And you said at the player meetup that there would be a shorter-term ease to the acquisition of scrolls, and a further off revamp or overhaul of the entire system. Now, you did mention it'd be something like an Essence sort of system. I'm calling them LIs 3.0. That's my personal term. I don't know what you folks are calling it. But understanding that it's extremely early days in how this process is going to work, or what, sort of concept, what sort of ideas are you working on to get LIs closer to what the players are asking for, but also make it so a new player just coming in isn't going to be like permanently behind and going to spend like months grinding before they can be competitive?
Well, first thing, like everything LotRO, is when we sort of poke around at the players to ask, so what do you want from the LIs? The answers are a wide variety of things. Some of them are like, we like LIs fine, it's just I don't like doing old content. And others are like, we want to see a complete revamp of LIs, and what can we do? So we have to be really careful, because the players have put a lot of time and effort into that, and we want to respect that. I wouldn't want a player to come in and be like, I spent all this time for the LIs, and then you revamp the system, and I've lost all my progress. So whatever the new system is, it will carry over your progress, and it will turn into progress in the new system in as satisfying a manner as we're able to.
Yeah, but is it going to be similar to the essences, where you unsocket something and you socket something new in, and that basically takes the place of throwing scrolls and having never-ending bars to fill up? That's what it feels like right now.
So I think that it's early.
Mhm.
We've sort of had the meeting. I think one of our goals is that putting things in your LI should feel a little more like gearing. So your virtues will probably stay. Not your virtues. Your the relics will probably stay, and then the what gives you your class specific powers might be something that you slot, so it can change how you build your character. In terms of this essence will increase this skill, because right now one of the things we have to be careful about is the LIs change how you play your character.
Yeah,
You know,
allies for different.
yeah,
roles.
there are ones that like really increase bleeds, so all of a sudden your bleed build becomes the premier build, or increases specific skills, and we want to make sure that that is retained, and that would probably translate to essences. But if we can come up with a system where you can make different choices on your builds by sliding different essences, we think that would be a cool design space to explore if we can do it and make it satisfying to the player.
Like sentient gems in DDO,
Yeah,
vaguely.
except that picture that, but the DDO sentient gems don't have filigree that changes actual skills.
Okay.
It would be like having a paladin specific filigree.
Gotcha.
So like a warden specific essence could be slotted in, and that essence could only be slotted into your legendary. So that's sort of what we're looking at longer term. In the shorter term, we'd like to bring some of the ability to get scrolls into current content, so the players don't feel that in order to stay current they have to do old content.
Fair enough. All right, moving toward the end of our time, I believe. Well, sort of. Men, elves, and dwarves have now been given a secondary race for players to play. With the inclusion of the Anduin area hobbits in the Mordor to Siege content, what's the over-under on those river hobbits becoming the next new race for the game?
They're quick and crafty. Those river hobbits, you have to be careful for them. This seems to me like they'd make good burglars, but
that seems pretty natural to me.
So I think that, you know, if you're going to follow the pattern, that is an area that we could definitely explore in the future, and I'd be excited for it. In terms of, like, you know, what else can we do with the Hobbit folk, and giving them other options like we did some of the other races. So I'd be excited for
Hobbit
that.
Captain.
And other class, you know, if we can justify it, other class options.
That would be cool. Okay, you did mention 2 new bits of content coming later this year. One is geared toward endgame players, and the other one was called missions that sounded really interesting, that would allow players of multiple levels to play together without penalty like you can. How would that differ from the scaling content we currently have, like epic battles and skirmishes? You can play with your friends and everything scales to you, or scales to the level it's set for the instance. How is this going to be different?
Okay, so backing up, we're still working on the context for missions. And the idea is that a mission would be of your level, and it wouldn't be something that would auto scale everyone to the same level. So it's not intended to solve the problem of you're 60 and I'm 20, can we play together? I would love to solve that problem, but the back-end systems of LotRO are complex, and there are issues with something like big battles where it auto scales you. Missions are more like the mission will know what level you are and create an appropriate challenge. So the mission is, right now we have a lot of new content, but we also have a lot of players that they aren't at endgame and they would like to see new things, and we see they all flood over to the festivals and love those. So we'd like to see some of our new content be available for the players of all levels. So the War of Three Peaks, and 3 peaks or 1 mountain.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, like lore made sure that I understood that we couldn't call it the War of 3 Mountains, because it's not 3 mountains. It's 1 mountain with 3 peaks. But that lore aside, so what we want to do is that when Durin calls for help, not only will he accept help from the high level heroes, but heroes of all types will have the capability of going and participating, and the missions are our way of doing that. And the missions will be a wide variety of small things that will follow the story as well, so that the players of all kinds of content can go there, do that, and participate. Don't want to use that term again. The way we picture it is that when the content's released, missions will be very rewarding because we'll have some sort of event where it's like double mission rewards. It'll drop extra tokens and extra XP. You can use the tokens to get all sorts of rewards, like you would think of a festival, except that it would be people will be able to use it to gear up as they level, for instance. And then once the event's down, it will go to like normal kind. It would be like, I'm stuck in Bree and I would like to go to the Barrow Downs, but I'm like 4 levels behind. I'll go to the War of Three Peaks and do some missions to catch up, get some gear, and then I can move on. That sort of that's the place that we envision this taking.
Now, when you say the War of Three Peaks, and you clarify that it's not 3 different mountains, because people were wondering if it was the 3 mountains above Khazad-dûm, so it's one single mountain. Which mountain is that? Is that Mount Gundabad?
I think that is.
It's got 3 peaks. I didn't know that. So
I
there are
think
4
that is.
lights and 3 peaks.
Right.
All right. So I think 2 more questions. We're gonna backtrack to servers and a little bit of a techie side of thing. Somebody had asked a question about whether LotRO would get another server consolidation, and you gave a rather curious answer, and I thought it was very interesting. Is that you said that you're considering a different kind of legendary server with different roles. Now, I immediately came up with some ideas like, okay, what do they mean? So I was thinking, well, DDO, hardcore league-like experience. I was trying to envision, could that be a possibility? Or maybe making it so that you can no longer solo the epic quest, like the original Shadows of Angmar version, where inspiration was not a thing. You needed to get a party to do certain bits of that content. Or the one that will incite certain members of our player base, open world PvP, but creeps would have to scale to the zone they're in. Would any of those be a rule set that would be interesting for, or you'd be considering for a new potential?
I think all of them would. So our goal would be to have some niche server events that might only excite a small portion of the player base, and then some larger servers with new ways to play that affect the overall gameplay, so that many more of our people would like playing. Like, one of the interesting things about our current legendary server is one great effect of it is it allowed us and gave us reason to visit all the old content and bring it all back into focus and revamp it and make sure that it was modern as people move through area to area. Like, one of the things that Jeff is doing is providing ways of experiencing the big battle story without having to do big battles. So you could go into big battles, or you could experience the story in a manner that the players would be more interested in, like instanced, kind of like you experience the battle before the Black Gate.
Interesting. That would be a definite. I think Professor Corey and his crew would be most interested in that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. That's one of the examples of ways we were able to revisit old content with legendary servers. So I think that we'd probably do something that would be interesting for a small player base, and maybe have a legendary server that was a fun thing to turn on for a little bit, and then have another legendary server where it's more oriented towards a larger player base, but has some twist that, as you said, that would make it fun and feel different in terms of like, oh, how can we play that? And we've sort of been discussing a lot of that, and we have some ideas on that. We're still looking into the tech behind them. So, but all of those are ideas that I've heard thrown sort of into the ring in terms of that. I don't know that letting the creeps out, for instance, as a server, I think it would be fun for like an event, like for 3 months. But when we looked at it, man, the balance, like balancing for them for all the levels would be tough. We'd have to that end. I would love to do something where the players could participate in something where they could fight each other or at least challenge each other, but not blow my budget and have half the team working on something that a small amount of players will play.
Fair. All right, final question, big question, because it's a big bombshell. So at the player meeting, you announced a lengthy summer event involving the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen. First, not exactly a serious question. Are we going to have to pick flowers again, like in North Pavilion?
I think there's a high chance that flowers will be involved in that festival.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's a wedding, right? Like, I don't know whether it'll be picking or throwing or gathering or arranging, but I'm sure that flowers will be involved. So the people who like picking flowers, rest assured, will probably be there. The people who don't like picking flowers, rest assured, there should be lots to do so that if you don't want to do that one thing, that you can find other things to do.
All right. Something Cordovan said on a stream recently made me curious. He asked players what their opinion would be on the notion of combining some or all of the Farmers Fair and Harvest Math festivals into one larger event. And let's say Farmers Fair got switched, got assimilated by Harvest Math and, frees up some time on the calendar. So the thought occurred that would free up some time to have a lengthy wedding festival event that would recur every year. Is that a possibility, or is Maid of Life going to be really upset with me for guessing things correctly months in advance again?
We want once the wedding is passed, players should be able to revisit it as an anniversary of the wedding event. That's our goal in this, is that like there will be things that will happen during the wedding and then they'll recur every year. We definitely want to do that, and one of the reasons that we would combine other festivals is to give the players a bigger event, because that's good. Like when the players come in for an event, we want them to feel as though there's tons to do, but also it frees up time, because right now we certainly don't want the wedding to subsume the summer event, because that's very popular. Yeah. So we would kind of push them like apart so that the players could participate in both, and then I don't know whether the other two will eventually be combined, but as we look at our schedule, that is definitely one of the things that that could be possible in terms of that.
Because of course, in the lore, the wedding happened on Midsummer Day, so it's kind of like the Durin's Day yearly event. It happens at a certain, or Bilbo's birthday, there are certain specific days. Right. So having them on the same or similar time on the real life calendar would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, and those are pretty much all of my questions, because we kind of jumped around a bit. So do you have anything else that you'd like to tell the players of either LotRO or DDO at this point?
Sure, there's tons of them. One of the interesting things about doing player meetups is a lot of the players ask me, how do I feel about X? Like someone asked me like about psionics. I'm a big psionics fan because I ran a whole campaign with Githyanki and Githzeri and them kind of appearing and attacking the players. So I was excitedly saying I'd love to do that, and it dribbled out into the player base. It's like, oh my god, astral update with psionics. And I just want to make sure the players understand the difference between me being excited, the prospect of doing something, and what we have planned and announced.
Yeah,
right?
That's
because those
always
things,
a big concern.
Yeah, those things can change in terms of that. I think that one of the things I'm also excited about is definitely want to do. I'm excited about the Gundabad expansion.
Yeah, you teased us 2 years ago about that. It'll be 3 years by the time it comes out. So as you said at the time, there are a lot of works there. And once we get done, there won't be. I'm just saying. So.
That'll be fun, and we're working towards that. I think that the Legacy of Durin and the Trials of the Dwarves, which is one name, by the way, that's not two separate.
Oh,
things.
It's kind of like the painting in Doctor Who. It has two titles.
Right. So that's all one, and that's the name of the storyline that begins.
Okay, the Legacy of Durin and the Trial of the Dwarves.
That is the work. That is the name that I have been told. Now maybe it'll change.
maybe
because
it'll
that's
change.
very long, and I think the players will end up just using an acronym for it. But that will be the storyline. That
TLOD. Well, they're both TLOD, so
yeah,
whatever. Well, kind of. So I thank you very much for your time, Rob. I know
Sure.
you're extremely busy and appreciate. One tiny question that's just a curious. Since you mentioned what you were looking for, your thief acrobat in DDO, what are you building on the LotRO side? What have you been
I'm
playing
a
the
big
most?
champion fan.
Yeah,
So I've been
champion
working
main.
on a stout axe champion
Mm-hmm.
with 2 axes, and
Yeah.
so I leveled them up. And instead of working up a new champion, I actually just pushed him to 120 so that I could sort of be at the end game, and that's kind of what I'm
That's what
working
he
on
did.
now. I also like
It's the only way he
tanking,
doesn't die.
so I've been kind of playing with Guardian and Warden to see which of the two I want to look at for a tank in terms of that too. So those are the characters I'm
Not
currently
confirmed.
playing.
Guardian or Wardens are not known for the tanking on Wardens. Sorry. That's always been a concern that that Wardens are trailing behind because Guardians always been the main tank class, but Wardens are always the off tank, and they want to be the main tank.
Kind of why I wanted to play a Warden to
Yeah,
test the waters and see how true that was, but
we'll find out.
there's a lot of theory crafting behind the scenes in terms of looking at that. And yeah, the Guardian tends to be the main tank currently. So
We'll see how that goes. So hopefully you find something interesting, and maybe things will improve for our friends who are the Wardens. Because it's a very difficult class. I've had some trouble learning how to play myself, so I go to the veteran Wardens and ask them, okay, what are you doing?
right.
I just don't worry about tanking. I'll just go play landscape and I'll be okay. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time, Rob. I appreciate it, and you have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
Mhm.